Hey guys, welcome back. So far in this chapter, we have been seeing how to configure and use Flume. In the last lesson, we saw how to send Flume events from one server to another using Avro Source and Avro Sync. In addition to that, we also saw how to intercept Flume events and add information to event headers, which can be later used to categorize Flume events by using a concept called multiplexing. In the very first lesson of this chapter, we mentioned that we are not restricted to use just out-of-the-box sync and source. We can also develop our custom source and sync as well. That is exactly what we are going to do today. We're going to write a program and implement a custom Flume source. If you remember, back in the Hive chapter, we saw how to stream live tweets from Twitter for certain keywords. If you don't remember that or would like to brush up, go to the Hive chapter and watch the Twitter Part 1 lecture again. In this lesson, we are going to write a custom source to stream live tweets from Twitter using Flume. Here's what we're going to do. We will first write the custom source which will listen to Twitter for tweets. The incoming tweets will be converted to Flume events and will be pushed to the Flume channel. Finally, the events will be consumed by a Flume sync, which will eventually store the events or tweets in HDFS. Let's now look at how to write a custom source. 90% of the program which we will see in the Twitter source Java file today was already covered in the Twitter Part 1 lecture in Hive chapter using the program twitter.java. To create a Flume source, we're creating a class named Twitter source, which extends an abstract class named abstract source and implements two interfaces, event-driven source and configurable. Both the class and the interfaces are from the Flume library. Next, we'll override the configure method from the configurable interface. The context object here gives us the ability to pull configuration properties from the Flume configuration file. In the Flume configuration file, we have specified the keys and access tokens which we downloaded from Twitter. For more information on this, check Twitter Part 1 lecture in Hive chapter. We have also specified specific keywords we would look for in tweets. We can access all the properties using the context object in the configure method. Once we have all the needed configuration, we build a configuration builder and a Twitter string. The code here is exactly same as the other Twitter program from the Hive chapter. Next, we have to override the start method from the abstract source class. Here, we'll get the Flume channel by calling the getChannel processor. Next, we'll instantiate the status listener from the Twitter library. Inside the status listener, we'll use the onStatus method to listen to incoming tweets. The code in the status listener is almost the same as the other Twitter program, but the important difference is in the other program, as soon as we received the tweets, we wrote them into a file in the local file system. In our Twitter source, instead of writing the tweets into a file, we'll create a Flume event and add the tweet in the Flume event, along with the event header, which is nothing but a hash map in which we are just adding a timestamp, nothing fancy. Once the event is created, the event will be added to the channel by calling the process event method on the channel object. Next, we'll add the listener to the Twitter stream and then we'll create a filter to filter only the tweets with the keywords we are interested in. Finally, we'll call the start method to start the Flume source. We will also override the stop method, where we will stop the Twitter stream and also the Flume source. That is it. Our Twitter source is ready. This project, as with the other projects in the course, will be built using Maven. If you look inside the pom.xml file, you will see we've included all the dependencies from both Twitter and Flume. Let's go ahead and build this project now. Simply right-click and hit Run as Maven Build. If you're running it for the very first time, you would have to say clean install in the Maven command. There you go. Maven is now building the project. Let's wait for the build to complete. The build is a success and the jar file is stored in this location right here. Before we look at how to use this jar file, let's look at the configuration file. The configuration file for this project is stored in HIRW workshop Flume tweets. So let's open up the Twitter flume.conf file. And here's the configuration file. As always, let's first name the source, sync, and channel. We are naming the source as Twitter source, channel as the memory channel, and sync as HDFS sync. Now let's define the source. First, we are defining the memory here and nothing fancy here. The type of memory is memory because it is a memory channel, and the capacity is defined as 1000 and the transaction capacity is defined as 100. Now let's define the source. Usually for the source type we specify exec or even we tried an Avro source, but here we have a custom source. So here we have to give the fully qualified name for our Twitter source program. So that is what we're doing here. And next we'll define all the keys, access tokens, and keywords. These properties will be read in the configure method in Twitter source by accessing the context object. This source will be sending events to the memory channel, and hence we'll define that here. Let's now move on to the sync. We'll configure a HDFS sync. If you notice the path, you would see something interesting. At runtime, %y will be replaced by year, %m with month, %d with day, and %h with hour. So our tweets will be saved in different directories by date and time. And rest of the properties for the sync will look very familiar. This sync will be configured to look at the memory channel as well. Now it is time to start the Flume agent. But before we can execute the Flume agent, we need to copy the Twitter source jar file into the lib directory under the directory mentioned in the conf flag. So we have to copy the Twitter source jar into hirw flume tweets under the lib directory. Flume will automatically look up the lib directory for any libraries and loads them up when we start the agent. Now we have the configuration file ready and we have the Twitter source jar file under the lib directory. It's now time to start the Flume agent. Let's go ahead, copy this command, go to our cluster, paste it, and enter. And there you go. Our Twitter source is now connected to Twitter and it is now streaming live tweets just for the keywords that we have configured. And it is now creating files in our HDFS. And you can see there are a lot more files created because there are a lot of tweets coming in real time. So let's now go ahead and look up the files in HDFS under Flume tweets directory. We have configured our HDFS sync to store our tweets under the appropriate date and time at runtime. So here we see the year as 2016. So let's go into the directory. And now you see another directory here for the month. Go into the month. And another directory for the date. So go to 23. And finally, the hour, that is 13. And here we can see all the files that are being written by our Twitter source. So let's pick up a file and look up some tweets. Hadoop fs-cat. Let's pick up one of the files here. Let's open the file. And there you go. Here is the tweet. And that is it, guys. We were able to successfully write a custom Flume source called Twitter source, and we were able to stream live tweets from Twitter using Flume. That is it for now. See you in the next lesson.